Jake Morrison floated in the pilot seat of his mining ship, watching the stars through the small window. He had been hauling rocks from the asteroid belt for 15 years. It was boring work, but it paid the bills. His ship, the Starfall, was old and slow, but it was his. The radio crackled to life. "Jake, you seeing this?" It was his friend Pete, who worked another mining route. Jake looked at his scanner. Strange ships were moving toward Earth's moon. Big ships. Ships that didn't look like anything humans had ever built. They were long and thin, made of what looked like crystal. They moved through space without any visible engines. "Yeah, I see them," Jake said into his radio. "What do you think they are?" "No idea, man. But they're not ours." Jake tried to call Earth on the emergency channel. He got through to the Space Traffic Control Center. The woman who answered sounded scared. "We see them too," she said. "Military is scrambling everything they have. These things just appeared out of nowhere. They're not responding to any signals we send." On the lead alien ship, High Archon Veltar stood in his command center. The room was made of the same crystal as the ship's hull. Everything glowed with soft blue light. Veltar was tall and thin, with pale skin and large black eyes. His people, the Zephyrians, had ruled their part of the galaxy for 3,000 years. Report, Veltar said to his science officer. "The energy readings are coming from the satellite orbiting the third planet," the officer replied. "The readings match the ancient records. This could be the Temple of Echoes." Veltar nodded. The temple was a legend among his people. It was supposed to be a shrine built by an ancient race that had vanished long ago. The stories said it contained great power and knowledge. "What about the life forms on the planet?" Veltar asked. "Primitive," the officer said. "They have basic technology, radio waves, simple aircraft, crude rockets. They cannot even travel between worlds properly. They are not a threat." Veltar looked at the blue-green planet below. The beings living there were sending radio signals at his ships. Simple patterns of numbers and sounds, like animals trying to communicate. "Ignore them," he ordered. "Focus on the excavation." On Earth, Dr. Lisa Carter sat in front of her computer at the Arecibo Observatory. She was watching the alien ships through the radio telescope. The ships were scanning Earth and the moon with energy beams she had never seen before. "They're looking for something," she muttered to herself. She had been studying space signals for 20 years, but nothing had prepared her for this. The alien ships moved to the moon's surface. They began digging with beams of light that cut through rock like it was butter. Whatever they were looking for, it was deep underground. Lisa picked up her phone and called her boss. "You need to see this," she said. "They're not just visiting. They're digging." The Zephyrian dig site grew larger by the hour. Their machines cut through the moon's surface like it was made of sand. As they dug deeper, they found something unexpected. The rock was not natural. It had been carved and shaped by intelligent beings. "Archon," the dig leader reported. "We have found constructed passages. This is not a natural formation." Veltar came down to the dig site in a small shuttle. He walked through the tunnels his people had uncovered. The walls were covered in strange pictures. They showed scenes of war in space. Ships fighting among the stars. Planets burning. But the strangest thing was the beings in the pictures. They looked almost exactly like the primitive creatures living on the planet below. 2 arms, 2 legs, similar faces. But in the pictures, these beings were commanding vast fleets of warships. "Mythology," Veltar said when his archaeologist pointed out the similarity. Primitive peoples often imagine themselves as mighty warriors in their stories. But privately, he felt uneasy. The temple was real. The power readings were real. And the beings in these ancient pictures looked very much like the humans on Earth. The dig continued deeper. The tunnels led to a vast underground chamber. In the center of the room sat a large crystal, bigger than a house. It pulsed with soft light, and energy readings from it were off the charts. "This is it," Galtar breathed, "the heart of the temple." As his people prepared to study the crystal, something unexpected happened. On Earth, every human being suddenly stopped what they were doing. In offices, homes, schools, and streets, people around the world turned their heads upward. They all looked at the moon at the exact same moment. Jake Morrison felt it too. He was millions of miles away in his mining ship, but something made him look toward Earth, toward the moon. A feeling he had never experienced before filled his mind. It was like remembering a dream that had been forgotten for years. "What the hell?" he whispered. Dot on the moon, the Zephyrian scientists began their examination of the crystal. They attached their scanning equipment to its surface. The moment their devices made contact, the crystal began to glow brighter. Archon, the lead scientist, called out, "The energy output is increasing. The crystal is responding to our presence." Veltar watched as the crystal's light grew stronger. The walls of the chamber began to glow as well. As strange pictures on the walls seemed to move in. The shifting light. "Continue," he ordered. The scientists worked faster, trying to understand what they had found. They didn't notice that the crystal's energy was not just growing stronger. It was also reaching out. Invisible waves of power spread from the moon, washing over Earth and continuing into deep space. On Earth, the strange feeling grew stronger. People began to have dreams while they were still awake. Dreams of flying between the stars. Dreams of great battles. Dreams of ships and weapons and technologies that didn't exist. Lisa Carter felt it too. She was still at her telescope, but now she found herself understanding the alien technology she was watching. She knew how their ships worked. She knew what they were looking for. And somehow, she knew they had found it. The crystal on the moon pulsed one final time, sending a massive wave of energy across the galaxy. On dead worlds and forgotten space stations, ancient machines that had been silent for thousands of years suddenly came to life. The sleeping war gods called humanity were beginning to stir. The energy wave from the moon hit Earth like an invisible storm. Every human on the planet felt it pass through them. Most people just felt dizzy for a moment. But some felt much more. Colonel Ryan Mitchell was reviewing training reports at camp Pendleton when it happened. One second he was reading about supply problems. The next he was seeing flashes of massive space battles in his mind. Ships the size of cities fighting among the stars. And somehow he knew exactly how to command them. "Sir?" His aide, Lieutenant Brown, looked confused. "Are you okay?" Ryan looked around the room. Every soldier in the building was staring at the ceiling. They all had the same strange expression on their faces, like they were remembering something important. "Get me the base commander," Ryan said. Now, similar scenes played out at military bases around the world. Soldiers suddenly knowing things they had never learned. Pilots understanding aircraft that didn't exist. Engineers seeing blueprints in their minds for technologies that were impossible. At the CDC in Atlanta, Dr. Amanda Foster was running blood tests when her equipment started showing impossible results. The blood samples she had collected that morning were changing. Human DNA was activating sequences that had been dormant for thousands of years. "This can't be right," she muttered, running the test again. But the results were the same. Human genetics were evolving in real time. She called her colleague, Dr. James Park. "You need to get down here. Something is happening to our DNA." When James arrived, Amanda showed him the test results. "Look at this. These are sequences that were considered junk DNA yesterday. Now they're active in producing proteins that shouldn't exist." "What kind of proteins?" James asked. "Enhanced muscle fiber, improved neural pathways, better oxygen processing. It's like someone flipped a switch and turned on superhuman abilities. Far above Earth, the Zephyrian excavation team was making disturbing discoveries. The deeper chambers of the temple contained hundreds of empty sleep pods. Each pod was designed for a human-shaped being. Bioscanners detected genetic traces that matched the humans living on Earth below. Archon, the lead archaeologist, reported to Veltar, "These pods are not ancient. They show signs of recent use, within the last few thousand years." Veltar studied. "The readings? That's impossible. The humans below are primitive. They have no space travel capability. The genetic markers don't lie, sir. These pods were used by beings identical to the current Earth population." Veltar felt a chill run down his spine. The pictures on the walls suddenly seemed less like mythology and more like history. Back on Earth, strange things were happening. Everywhere. In a garage in Phoenix, Paul Henderson was building something he didn't understand. His hands moved on their own, assembling circuits and components in patterns that made no sense. But somehow, he knew exactly what he was doing. "Honey, what are you building?" His wife Carol asked from the doorway. Paul looked at the device taking shape on his workbench. It looked like a smaller version of the crystal the aliens had found on the moon. "I don't know," he said honestly, "but I have to build it." Similar scenes played out across the globe. Humans building impossible devices with knowledge they didn't remember learning. Teachers suddenly understanding advanced physics. Mechanics knowing how to repair engines that didn't exist. Children drawing pictures of spaceships with perfect technical accuracy. The Zephyrian High Council met in emergency session on their home world. The ancient monitoring stations scattered across the galaxy were all transmitting at once. Ships that had been dead for millennia were powering up. "How many vessels are we detecting?" asked Council Leader Zex High. "Over 10,000, sir," military commander replied. "And they're all heading toward the Sol system." 10,000 ships? That's impossible. Who built them? According to the energy signatures, they match the temple technology. They're human vessels, sir. The council. Chamber fell silent. The humans were supposed to be primitive. They couldn't even reach their own moon without crude rockets. How could they have 10,000 warships? On Earth, Captain Steve Parker was running a supply mission to Mars when he saw the first ancient ship appear. It materialized at the edge of the solar system, like a ghost becoming solid. The vessel was enormous, bigger than any human structure. But when Steve looked at it, he felt a strange sense of recognition. "Control, are you seeing this?" He radioed to Earth. "We see it, Steve. Stand by." Steve watched as more ships appeared. Dozens and hundreds. They were all heading toward Earth, but they moved slowly, as if they were being careful not to frighten anyone. His own ship's controls began to glow with lights he had never seen before. New displays appeared on screens that had been blank for years. Somehow, Steve knew exactly what they meant. Dr. Karen White was part of the emergency task force the government had put together to deal with the alien crisis. She was studying the energy readings from the approaching ships when she made a startling discovery. "They're not just ships," she told the assembled officials. "They're responding to human bioelectric fields. The vessels are designed to be operated by humans." "That's impossible," said General Adams. "We've never built anything like that." "The evidence says otherwise, sir. These ships have been waiting for human operators. They're coming home." The largest of the ancient ships, a massive vessel that dwarfed everything around it, took position above Earth's North Pole. It broadcast a message on all frequencies. The voice that spoke was clearly human, but it carried the weight of centuries. "Children of Earth," the voice said, "we have slept long, but now we wake. The temple has been violated. The sacred trust has been broken. Prepare for what comes next. In Nevada, former Air Force pilot Kelly Martinez was driving through the desert when she felt a strange pull. She left the highway and followed dirt roads she had never seen before. They led to an abandoned hangar. Hidden in the mountains. Inside the hangar was a small spacecraft. It was sleek and beautiful, covered in the same symbols that decorated the massive ships in orbit. When Kelly approached, the craft's systems activated. The cockpit opened, and she climbed inside. The moment she sat in the pilot's seat, everything changed. Kelly suddenly knew how to fly ships she had never seen. She understood weapon systems that didn't exist yesterday. She remembered battles fought in distant stars. "My God," she whispered, "what are we?" Similar discoveries were being made around the world. Hidden bases revealing themselves. Ancient weapons powering up. Humans finding technology that recognized them as its rightful owners. The Zephyrian fleet around Earth's moon prepared for battle. Their crystalline ships were the most advanced in the galaxy. But as they faced the approaching human vessels, Veltar felt a fear he had never experienced before. The human ships didn't just move through space. They seemed to bend reality around them. Their hulls were scarred by battles, fought against enemies whose names had been lost to time. These were not the ships of a primitive species. These were the vessels of apex predators. Archon, his tactical officer, reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the lead human vessel." "Put it through," Veltar ordered. The message was brief and terrifying. "You have awakened the Guardians. You have violated the sacred trust. Prepare for judgment." As the voice spoke, every human on Earth felt a change deep in their bones. The sleeping war gods were fully awake now, and they remembered exactly what they were capable of. The USS Retribution appeared at the edge of the solar system like a mountain made of metal and fury. Captain Steve Parker watched through his cargo ship's window as the ancient vessel moved past him. It was so large that it blocked out the stars. Behind it, the ship's hull was black and scarred from countless battles. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with soft blue light. Despite its size, it moved with impossible grace, like a dancer in the void of space. "Control, this is Parker," Steve radioed to Earth. "That thing is bigger than Manhattan." "How is it even possible?" "We don't know, Steve," came the reply. "But it's not alone. More ships were arriving every hour. Each one was unique, but they all shared the same design philosophy. They were built for war, but also for something else. Something that made Steve's chest tighten with emotions he couldn't name. On the moon, High Archon Veltar watched the human fleet assemble. His own ships were impressive by galactic standards. Crystal hulls that could withstand the heat of stars. Weapons that could crack planets. But looking at the human vessels, he felt like a child with toys facing real soldiers. "How many ships are we detecting?" he asked his tactical officer. "Over 2,000 have arrived, sir, and more are coming." Veltar studied the readings. The human ships weren't just technologically advanced. They were old, ancient beyond measure. Some of them showed battle damage from weapons that no longer existed in the galaxy. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving air." Transmission from the lead human vessel. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was calm and cold. "Zephyrian vessels, you have violated sacred ground. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Veltar activated his own transmitter. "This is High Archon Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective. By what right do you make demands? This system belongs to no one. By the oldest right of all, the human voice replied. "The right of guardians to protect what they guard. You have 3 minutes to begin your withdrawal." On Earth, Admiral Jack Thompson found himself standing on the bridge of the World Breaker, though he couldn't remember how. He got there. The ship's command center was vast, with screens showing every part of the galaxy. But what shocked him most was that he understood it all. "Admiral," said a voice behind him. Jack turned to see a young woman in a uniform he didn't recognize. "I'm Commander Lisa Hayes. I've been waiting for you to wake up." "Wake up?" Jack asked. "I don't understand any of this." "You will," Lisa said. "The ship will help you remember." As if responding to her words, the Worldbreaker's systems began feeding information directly into Jack's mind. He saw the history of humanity's expansion across the galaxy. He saw the great wars fought against beings that threatened all life. He saw the decision to sleep, to withdraw from galactic affairs and let younger species grow. "We were guardians," Jack said, the memories flooding back. "We protected the galaxy. And now we're awake again," Lisa replied, "because someone broke the rules." The Zephyrian fleet began to move away from the moon, but it was too late. The human ships moved to intercept them. The battle that followed was not really a battle at all. It was a demonstration. The Zephyrian crystalline hulls, which could withstand the heat of stars, simply ceased to exist when hit by human weapons. The energy beams didn't just destroy the ships. They unmade them, breaking them down into their basic atoms. In less than 5 minutes, half the Zephyrian fleet was gone. The rest surrendered immediately. "Impossible," Veltar whispered as he watched his ships dissolve into nothing. "What kind of weapons are those?" Dr. Lisa Carter was now aboard the Worldbreaker, serving as Earth's representative to the awakened fleet. She stood next to Admiral Thompson as he reviewed the battle reports. "They're not just weapons," she said. "They operate on principles we're only beginning to understand. They don't follow the normal rules of physics. Because we wrote different rules," Jack replied. "When you're responsible for protecting an entire galaxy, you need tools that can handle any threat." Lisa looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was spreading out across the solar system, taking control of every strategic position. "What happens now?" "Now we do what we were made to do," Jack said. "We judge." On the moon, the temple's crystal had fully activated. It was now projecting a holographic record of the last 10,000 years. Every war, every act of cruelty, every species that had chosen to prey on the weak instead of protecting them. Commander Emma Davis stood before the crystal, reading the records. She had been a civilian yesterday, working as a pilot for a small airline. Now she commanded the destroyer Vengeance, and she knew exactly what needed to be done. "The Zephyrians are just the beginning," she said to her crew. "Look at these records. Dozens of species have used our absence to become predators." The crew nodded. They were all ordinary humans who had been called to service by the awakening. But now they carried the memories and knowledge of their ancestors. They knew their duty. Captain Jake Morrison found himself aboard the ancient ship Starfire, even though he couldn't remember boarding it. His old mining vessel, the Starfall, was now docked in the Starfire's massive hangar bay. It looked like a toy next to the ancient warship. "This is insane," he said to the ship's AI. "Yesterday I was hauling rocks. Now I'm commanding a ship that can destroy planets." "You were always capable of this," the AI replied in a voice that sounded almost human. "The ability was in your genes, waiting to be awakened. Your ancestors built me to serve humanity's guardians. Now you are a guardian." Jake looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was preparing to leave the solar system. Their mission was clear: find every species that had committed crimes against the innocent and bring them to justice. "How many ships like this are there?" he asked. "Over 10,000, the AI replied. "Hidden in secret bases throughout the galaxy, all waiting for the day when humanity's guardians would wake up." The Zephyrian survivors were brought aboard the Worldbreaker for interrogation. Veltar sat in a holding cell, trying to understand what had happened. The humans had defeated his fleet without breaking a sweat. But more than that, they had done it with a casual efficiency that spoke of vast experience. Admiral Thompson entered the cell. "You wanted to find the Temple of Echoes," he said. "Congratulations. You found it. What are you?" Beltar asked. "We're what happens when a species evolves beyond the need for conquest," Jack replied. "We're guardians. We protect the innocent and punish those who prey on the weak. But you're primitive. You can't even reach your own moon." Jack smiled coldly. "We've been to every star in the galaxy. We've fought wars against beings that could destroy solar systems. We chose to sleep and let you grow. But you chose to become predators instead of protectors." The interrogation revealed the full scope of Zephyrian crimes. Slave raids on primitive worlds. The destruction of entire species deemed inferior. The use of advanced technology to terrorize less developed civilizations. "Your people have violated every law we established," Jack said. "The penalty is clear." As the human fleet prepared to leave Earth, ordinary humans worldwide felt a change. Some were called to serve aboard the ancient ships. Others remained behind, but they carried new knowledge and abilities. Humanity had awakened, and nothing would ever be the same. The last transmission from the World Breaker was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. "The Guardians have returned. Those who have preyed upon the innocent will face justice. Those who have lived in peace have nothing to fear. The age of unchecked conquest is over." The ancient fleet dispersed across the galaxy, each ship carrying the memory of 10,000 years of crimes that needed to be answered for. The sleeping war gods called humanity were fully awake now, and they had work to do. The message from the World Breaker reached every corner of the galaxy within hours. On ancient worlds whose civilizations had existed for millions of years, beings who had forgotten the meaning of fear suddenly remembered why they once whispered. Humanity's name in terror. The eternal archives of the Vegan Empire held records that stretched back 50,000 years. Keeper Silthana, who had overseen the archives for 3 millennia, searched through the oldest files with trembling fingers. She found what she was looking for in the deepest vaults. "The Great War," she whispered, reading accounts written by her ancestors. The humans were the galaxy's police force. It protected the weak and punished the strong who abused their power. The records told a story that had been deliberately forgotten. Humanity hadn't conquered the galaxy through force. They had been invited to rule because they were the only species that could be trusted with ultimate power. They had used their strength to protect, not to dominate. "But they disappeared," Silthana read aloud. "The humans announced they were withdrawing from galactic affairs. They said the younger species needed time to grow without guardians watching over them." On Earth, Admiral Jack Thompson stood in the World Breaker's command center, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The human fleet had spread out like a vast net, investigating every civilization that had risen in humanity's absence. "Status. Report," he said to Commander Lisa Hayes. 1,500 ships have reached their target systems," she replied. "We've confirmed major violations by 43 species. The Zephyrians were just the beginning." Jack nodded grimly. The temples. Crystal had recorded everything. 10,000 years of war crimes, slavery, genocide, and cruelty. Species after species had chosen to become predators when they thought no one was watching. "What about the peaceful ones?" he asked. "We found 12 species that have actually helped protect primitive worlds," Lisa said. "They're being offered protection and alliance status." The destroyer Vengeance, commanded by Captain Emma Davis, was approaching the Krex-High system. The Krex-High had built their empire on slave labor, raiding primitive worlds and taking their populations for forced labor. Their capital city was a monument to cruelty. "Target the government buildings," Emma ordered. "Avoid civilian areas. The Vengeance's weapons were precise beyond imagination. Energy beams reached down from orbit and simply erased the Krex High leadership complex. The building didn't explode or burn. It just stopped existing. Krex High Command, this is the human vessel Vengeance, Emma broadcast. Your leaders have been tried and found guilty of crimes against galactic law. You will release all slaves immediately and submit to human authority. The response came quickly. The Krex High had seen what happened to the Zephyrians. They surrendered without firing a shot. Captain Jake Morrison was having a harder time with his assignment. His ship, the Starfire, was stationed above the world of Vexka. The Vexcans were warriors who had spent the last 1,000 years conquering their neighbors. But they were also honorable in their own way. They follow rules of war, Jake said to his tactical officer, Kelly Martinez. They don't torture prisoners or target civilians. But they're still conquerors, Kelly replied. They've absorbed 27 smaller civilizations. Jake studied the reports. The Vexcans were aggressive, but they treated conquered peoples fairly. They offered citizenship and protection in exchange for loyalty. It was conquest, but it wasn't cruelty. Open a channel, he decided. The Vexcan Emperor, a massive reptilian being covered in ceremonial armor, appeared on the main screen. I am Emperor Vex Thai. I assume you are here to destroy us, like you destroyed the Zephyrians. That depends on you, Jake replied. You're conquerors, but you're not cruel. You follow laws of war. You protect those you rule. We are warriors, Vex Thai said proudly. But we are not animals. We conquer to bring order, not to inflict suffering. Then you have a choice, Jake said. Continue your expansion and face our judgment, or join us in protecting the galaxy's innocent. The Emperor considered this. You offer us partnership? You're strong enough to be useful and honorable enough to be trusted, Jake replied. The galaxy needs guardians. Help us protect it. On the peaceful world of Serenity, the local government received a very different message. The human ship Protector had arrived not to judge, but to offer help. We've been monitoring your system, Captain Carol Henderson said to the Serenity Council. You've been protecting 3 primitive worlds from raiders. You've shared your technology freely. You've never started a war. The council leader, a being that looked like a cross between a dolphin and a bird, seemed overwhelmed. We didn't know anyone was watching. Someone is always watching, Carol replied. And you've proven yourselves worthy of trust. We're offering you protection and access to our technology. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Species that had chosen cruelty found themselves facing judgment. Species that had chosen kindness found themselves offered partnership. Dr. Amanda Foster was still on Earth, but she was now studying samples from across the galaxy. The awakening had changed more than just human genetics. It had awakened something in the entire galaxy. The quantum field fluctuations are increasing, she reported to the Global Science Council. It's like the galaxy itself is becoming more aware. What does that mean? Asked Dr. James Park. I think the temple wasn't just a monitoring station, Amanda said. I think it was connected to something larger, something that links all intelligent life in the galaxy. The truth was even stranger than Amanda suspected. The temple was part of a network that humanity had built at the height of their power. It connected every inhabited world, allowing the Guardians to sense injustice anywhere in the galaxy. High Archon Veltar, now imprisoned aboard the Worldbreaker, was learning the full scope of what his people had awakened. Admiral Thompson visited him daily, not to interrogate, but to educate. Your people aren't the worst we've found, Jack said during one visit. The Nexus Collective makes you look like angels. The Nexus? Veltar asked. They've been harvesting primitive species for food, Jack replied. They consider any species without faster-than-light travel to be animals. They've eaten entire planets clean of life. Veltar felt sick. What will happen to them? What do you think should happen to them? Jack asked. The question haunted Veltar. He had thought his people were justified in their conquest. They had brought order to chaos, civilization to primitive worlds. But now he saw the galaxy through human eyes, and he understood the difference between order and oppression. The human fleet continued its work methodically. The Nexus Collective was eliminated in a single day. Their feeding stations were destroyed, their leadership executed, their surviving population relocated to prison worlds. The brutal Khans, who had turned war into entertainment, found their gladiator worlds turned into refugee centers. The merchant princes, who had sold weapons to all sides of every conflict, watched their trade empires crumble, but not every encounter ended in violence. The Wanderer fleet, a group of explorers who had spent centuries mapping the galaxy and helping primitive worlds, were welcomed as allies. The Peaceful Union, a confederation of species that had banned warfare entirely, was offered advanced defensive technology. As the human fleet completed its circuit of the galaxy, a new order began to emerge. The cruel were punished, the kind were protected. The strong were given a choice: use their strength to protect or face those who would. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the Worldbreaker, looking out at the stars. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of dangers. Species that would prey on the weak if given the chance. Beings who saw kindness as weakness and cruelty as strength. "The job's not finished," he said to Commander Hayes. "It never will be." "No," she agreed. "But that's why we're here. That's why we woke up." The sleeping war gods called humanity had remembered their purpose. They were not conquerors or destroyers. They were guardians. And the galaxy would never again be left without protection. The age of unchecked expansion was over. The age of enforced justice had begun. The Zephyrian Collective fell on the third day of the human campaign. Their crystal cities cracked like glass under weapons that rewrote the laws of physics. High Archon Veltar watched from his prison cell as his civilization ended not with a bang, but with a whisper. "It's over," Admiral Jack Thompson said, entering the cell. "Your government has surrendered unconditionally." Veltar looked up with hollow eyes. "What happens to my people now?" "That depends on them," Jack replied. "Those who committed crimes will face justice. Those who were just following orders will be relocated to supervised worlds. Those who actively tried to help their victims will be offered clemency." "And me?" "You're going to help us," Jack said. "You're going to broadcast a message to every species in the galaxy. You're going to tell them what you learned." The broadcast went out on every frequency, reaching every inhabited world. Veltar's voice carried across the galaxy, broken but honest. "I am High Archon Veltar of the former Zephyrian Collective. I speak to warn you all. The humans have returned. They are not conquerors. They are not destroyers. They are judges, and they remember everything." He paused, gathering his strength. "For 10,000 years, we thought we were free to do as we pleased. We thought might made right. We were wrong. The humans are the galaxy's guardians, and they have awakened to find us wanting." On Earth, President Helen Garcia stood in the Rose Garden, addressing both her world and the galaxy. The speech was broadcast to every inhabited planet, translated into thousands of languages. "We did not choose to wake," she said. "We were content to sleep and let you find your own path. But some of you chose to become predators. Some of you chose to prey on the weak and innocent. That choice has consequences." She looked directly into the camera, her voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of sorrow. "We are not angry. We are disappointed. We gave you time to grow, to learn, to become better than you were. Instead, many of you became worse. The galaxy listened in silence. Every world, every ship, every space station received the signal. The message was clear. The age of unchecked expansion was over. Commander Troy Mitchell, Kelly Martinez's brother, was overseeing the construction of new monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. These facilities, built using rediscovered human technology, could observe every inhabited system simultaneously. "How many are we building?" asked his chief engineer, Paul Henderson. 1,000 stations, Troy replied, each one capable of monitoring 50 star systems. No species will ever again be able to commit atrocities in the darkness between stars. The construction was happening faster than should have been possible. Human workers found themselves building with knowledge they had never learned. Ancient factories on dead worlds came back to life, producing materials that didn't exist in any textbook. "It's like the galaxy is helping us," Paul said, watching a monitoring station assemble itself from raw materials. "Maybe it is," Troy replied. "Maybe. The galaxy is tired of what it's seen." The human fleet continued its work across the galaxy. Captain Emma Davis and the Vengeance were at the former Nexus Collective Worlds, overseeing the rehabilitation of species that had been enslaved for food. The work was slow and difficult, but it was necessary. "How many survivors are we dealing with?" Emma asked her medical officer. "Over 2 billion beings from 47 different species," Dr. Karen White replied. "Most of them have never known freedom. They don't know how to live without masters. And we teach them," Emma said. "We give them time to heal and learn. We give them what the Nexus never did, a choice." The former slave worlds were transformed into rehabilitation centers. Human medical teams worked alongside alien doctors to heal both physical and psychological wounds. It would take generations, but the survivors would be free. On the peaceful world of Serenity, Captain Carol Henderson was helping to establish the first of the new alliance governments. Species that had proven themselves worthy of trust were being offered partnership in the new galactic order. "We call it the New Covenant," Carol explained to the Serenity Council. "A promise between all civilized species. The strong protect the weak. The advanced help the primitive. No one is left behind." The council leader, whom the humans called Friend of All Birds, seemed overwhelmed by the concept. "And if we fail in this promise, then we remind you of your duty," Carl replied, gently at first, more firmly if necessary. The pattern was being repeated across the galaxy. Species that had lived peacefully were offered membership in the new covenant. Those that had been aggressive but honorable were offered a chance to reform. Those that had been cruel faced justice. Dr. Amanda Foster was no longer on Earth. She had been called to serve aboard the research vessel Discovery, studying the quantum changes occurring throughout the galaxy. Her work was revealing truths that changed everything humanity thought they knew about the universe. "The Temple Network isn't just monitoring stations," she reported to Admiral Thompson. "It's a consciousness network. Every intelligent being in the galaxy is connected to it on a quantum level." "What does that mean?" Jack asked. "It means the galaxy itself is alive," Amanda replied. "It's aware, and it's been watching everything that's happened. The cruelty, the suffering, the injustice. It's been waiting for someone to do something about it." The revelation explained why the human awakening had been so sudden and complete. The galaxy itself had called its guardians back to service. The network that connected all intelligent life had reached out to humanity's sleeping genetic memories and awakened them. High Archon Veltar was released from prison after 6 months. He had cooperated fully with the human authorities, providing information that helped track down war criminals across the galaxy. His reward was a choice: exile or service. "I choose service," he said to Admiral Thompson. "Let me help fix what my people broke." Veltar became one of the first alien officers in the new Guardian fleet. His knowledge of Zephyrian technology and tactics proved invaluable in tracking down the remaining war criminals. But more than that, his example showed other species that redemption was possible. Captain Jake Morrison was patrolling the Outer Rim worlds when he encountered something unexpected. A previously unknown species had just achieved faster-than-light travel and was making contact with the galaxy for the first time. "They're called the Harmony," Jake reported to Fleet Command. "They've been isolated in their system for thousands of years. They have no idea what's been happening in the galaxy." "What are they like?" Admiral Thompson asked. "Peaceful, curious. They've never fought a war. They've never even considered that other species might be hostile. The Harmony were everything the galaxy should have been. They had achieved advanced technology without losing their compassion. They had explored space without the desire to conquer. They were exactly what humanity had hoped the younger species would become. They're our success story," Jack said. "Proof that the galaxy can produce good people when given the chance." The Harmony were welcomed into the new covenant as honored members. Their technology was studied, their culture celebrated, their example held up as a beacon for other species. As the first year of the new covenant ended, the galaxy began to change. Trade routes that had been disrupted by war reopened. Species that had been enemies for millennia began to cooperate. The fear that had gripped the galaxy for 10,000 years began to fade. But the human fleet never stopped patrolling. They were always watching, always ready to respond to threats. The monitoring stations tracked every ship, every transmission, every hint of trouble. President Garcia addressed the galaxy again on the anniversary of the awakening. "We are not your rulers," she said. "We are your protectors. We do not seek to control you. We seek to ensure that you can live in peace." The new covenant is not a government. It is a promise that the strong will protect the weak, that the advanced will help the primitive, that no one will be left to suffer in silence. She paused, looking out at the stars. "Some of you may think this is tyranny. Some of you may believe that might should make right. You are welcome to try, to prove your point. But remember, we are the ones who taught the galaxy what true strength looks like." The galaxy had learned. Species that had once been enemies worked together on joint projects. Primitive worlds were protected and nurtured instead of exploited. The slave markets that had operated for millennia were empty and abandoned. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the World Breaker, watching the stars turn. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but it was also full of responsibility. Every world, every species, every life was under their protection now. Was it worth it? Commander Hayes asked. "Waking up, I mean. Giving up our peace to take on this burden?" Jack thought about the question. He remembered the quiet years before the awakening, when humanity had slept peacefully on their small blue world. He remembered the simplicity of that existence. Then he thought about the species they had saved, the slaves they had freed, the wars they had prevented, the children who would grow up in a galaxy where strength protected rather than preyed upon weakness. "Yes," he said finally, "it was worth it." The sleeping war gods called humanity had awakened to find a galaxy in need of protection. They had answered that call, not with conquest, but with justice. The new covenant would endure because it was built on the oldest and